Hello everyone and welcome back to Drinking Cocktails to Angry Badass Women in History. My name is Lark and today we're going to be featuring the Mai Tai and Haunani-Kay Trask. I just want to take a second to say why we chose this person. My family and I have been so lucky to have visited the Hawaiian Islands, and every time we've gone, we've got nothing but love from the people of Hawaii. From the majestic land to the ethereal sea, it's often overlooked about what Hawaii really means. The very spirit of aloha is something more than just a simple word. So in our history, we overlook the indigenous people's struggle, and today we just wanted to highlight a person who had done so much to propel the island forward and its history. So let's get started on the drink today, the Mai Tai. Okay, so what we're gonna need is some gold rum. I chose Bacardi. Some dark rum. I chose Meyers. Some 151. I prefer Lemon Hart. That's my favorite. I like the taste. And then there's triple sec. There's two kinds of triple sec. Believe it or not, there's an alcoholic one and a non-alcoholic one. For our purpose today, we're going to be using the alcoholic one. And then a little bit of Orgeat Syrup. So to get started, I already have a shaker filled with ice. I have my glass here. You're going to do 1 ounce of the Bacardi Gold. A half an ounce of the 151. An ounce of the triple sec. And then a half an ounce of the Orgeat Syrup. Go ahead and take some fresh lime. Get that all nice and squeezed in there. And it's just to your taste. You could add more or less depending on what you like. Okay, go ahead and put that in. Shake for a couple seconds, get that nice and mixed up. See? Pour that in. And then I'm gonna float a little Meyers dark on top. And then if you want to get fancy, because you know that I do, some fresh cut pineapple. Oh, that'll knock your socks off. That's delicious and a bit strong. Aloha and welcome back. Hopefully you've had some of your very strong drink, because these drinks are pure liquor. I have Vianney and Sadiq with me to talk about our subject today. So today's angry badass woman in history is Haunani-Kay Trask. She's an indigenous Hawaiian poet, scholar, and activist. She's recognized all over the United States and abroad for her leadership in the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. Her radical feminism and her anti-colonialization is one of the reasons that we wanted to feature her here today.
So before we get into what a angry badass woman in history she was, let's take a brief synopsis and talk about how Hawaii became a state. So we could first talk about going all the way back to Captain Cook and his pillaging and raping of the natives, or the infestation of the missionaries to the Hawaiian Islands. But instead, we're going to talk about President Grover Cleveland. It started during the time of his message to Congress during December 18th of 1893. So President Cleveland acknowledged that the Hawaiian Kingdom was unlawfully invaded by the United States Marines on January 16th, 1893. This led to an illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian government the following day. President Cleveland acknowledged that those individuals who he sought the Queen's consent given amnesty were not a government at all. And since then, it's been a continual fight from the Hawaiian indigenous people to claim their land. So it's acknowledged that the United States violated international law and treaties by its occupation of the Kingdom of Hawaii. So a lot of people don't realize that Hawaii didn't become a state until August 21st, 1959. So from its first occupation, 66 years later, to its statehood, that's how quickly Hawaii became a state. So now that you have a brief background of the struggle, let's get back to our angry badass woman in history.
So, Haunani-Kay Trask was born October 3rd in 1949. Trask and her family are descendants of the Piilani line of Maui and the Kahakumaka line of Kauai. She was born in California, but grew up on the island of Oahu. Trask attended the University of Chicago, where she completed her bachelor's degree in 1972. She also received a master's degree in 1975 and a PhD in political science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1981. Her dissertation was revised into a book, Years in Prose, The Promise of Feminist Theory. It was published by the University of Pennsylvania Press in 1986. It was her time in college that formed her ideas, which moved her into activism.
So her activism is an important part of her story. During her time as a student in Chicago, she became an active supporter and a participant in the Black Panther Party. She admired their organizational structure, and then later, when she returned to Hawaii, she started another movement that was very similar called the Aloha Aina movement. She also noticed the importance of the protest movement of what the Black Panther Party and the Black Power movement was doing. Links between the displacement issues of Hawaiian African Americans point to a general bond and historically similar things happening of oppressed people.
During her time as a graduate student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Haunani found herself involved with the Vietnam War protest. Because of her experiences, she began to understand how capitalism and racism sustained each other. She also discussed the similarities of the Native American people and the Hawaiians in their continual fight for land rights. From here, she continued her work in Hawaii.
Haunani-Kay Trask went on to become one of the founding members of the Center for Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. She served as the director of the Center for Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii and was one of the first tenured faculty members. It's during this time she published several books, poems, and a documentary. Her documentary came out in 1993 and was titled Active War, The Overthrow of the Hawaiian Nation.
It was right after this that she noted her changing feelings about being a feminist. She denounced her role as a feminist because it was a mainstream focus on American whiteness. She started to align herself with transnational feminism. She felt any exclusive focus on women neglected the historical oppression of Hawaiians and the large force field of imperialism.
So with that being said, I'd like to read one of her powerful poems that expresses her thoughts on what was happening with the imperialism. In her poem called Racist White Woman. I could kick your face, puncture both eyes. You deserve this kind of violence. No more vicious tongues, obscene lies, just a knife for slitting your tight little heart. For all of my people under your feet, for all of those years, live smug and wealthy, off of our land, parasite, arrogant, a fist in your painted mouth, thick with money and piety. With this poem, you can feel her anger about what was happening with her people, about their disenfranchisement, the losing of their land, the losing of their language. Haunani was a great leader of her people. She was a poet, scholar, and she did what she believed was right. You can see why she was our feature as a badass, angry woman of history. It has been our pleasure to give you a small insight into her life and into her work. If you have any other badass women of history you'd like for us to feature, or a drink you'd like us to make, please drop it in the comments below. We'll leave the recipe, the books, poems, websites that we use to research her, and please feel free to add any comments to help us along with that. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Aloha and mahalo.
Mahalo.